Hi, everyone, and welcome to this powerful interview series, Vagina-Pussy-Vulva, lifting taboos of female sexuality, power, and wisdom. I'm your host, Mangala Holland, and I specialize in giving women tools to empower themselves in their sexuality, self-love, and orgasmic confidence. During this series, you're going to discover practical tools and advice to empower you to show up with confidence in your body and your sexuality, and to be unapologetically authentic and to let go shame and self-sabotage so that you can access your inner wisdom, power, and mystery in your amazing body. I'm so excited that we've got all this wisdom from all these amazing guest experts, and these conversations are raw, they're real, and we're going there. So without further ado, it's my delight and honor to introduce you to today's guest, Marina Nabal. Hi, Marina, welcome.
Oh, hi, Mangala. Thank you so much for having me here. Just your opening gives me chills to be here and be able to have these conversations with such a big audience. Thank you. I'm
Oh,
really excited.
you're most welcome. So
Mm.
for those of you who might not know Marina yet, I'm just going to introduce you and share her bio with you. So Marina uses the pronouns she, her, and she teaches women to lovingly reconnect with their bodies, pleasure, and sexuality so that they can live their desires and dreams with a deep sense of empowerment, self-confidence, and freedom. The services she offers are based on neurobiology, the ancestral traditions of Taoism, Tantra, and sacred sexuality, ontological coaching, and nonviolent communication. Marina has a BA in pedagogy and a business MBA, and she teaches and coaches women's holistic sexuality. She's had over 800 hours of coaching training, and she's certified in both Brazil and the US. She grew up in Brazil and now lives in San Francisco Bay Area with her husband and their rescue dog, Jessie. Cool.
That's
Oh.
me.
So there's so many different ways we could take this conversation. There's so much I want to talk to you about. And I think what would be a really good starting point for our audience is I'd love to ask you about a little bit about your own personal journey, because what I see in the work you do is about how to use integrated sexuality as a pathway for not just empowerment but also liberation. And I wonder if you could kind of share with us a little bit about your personal story of liberation through sexual empowerment.
Yeah, sure. I'd love to. So, what happens is I have to start saying from where I speak from,
Mm,
which is being a Black Brazilian woman. As a Black Latina woman, I believe that the word thriving was never part of my vocabulary,
mhm,
or it was never used for people like me.
mhm.
You know, it was never associated with people like me. And because of that, I have to say that I don't come from a poor, suffered background or anything. I have many privileges, higher education, um, traveling the world, access to very good healthcare and everything. Uh, but still, with all those privileges, I always settled for less than I could have. That meant I was much of a people pleaser in my whole life, like pleasing my family, pleasing my friends, pleasing the men I related with. And there's nothing wrong with pleasing others, but you know, disregarding my needs, disregarding my boundaries, disregarding my limits. So that was one thing. And the other was the way that I felt I could do so much more with my life, even though I was doing a lot. I was an executive in the corporate world, traveling the world, you know, doing business everywhere. So I was doing a lot already. But there was this deeper, bigger sense when I went to bed at night that I was like, I could be doing something different here. You know, it could be more meaningful to me, it could be more fulfilling to to whatever it was that was inside of me, like wanting to be seen, wanting to be felt, wanting to be heard. And so back in 2016, I started studying sacred sexuality, what we can call as sacred sexuality, right? And I had this amazing realization of what my body was capable of feeling that I didn't know, even though also I had a good sex life. I didn't have much problem with my sexuality, with my sensuality, but I uncovered layers and layers of possibilities in this body. And I started really feeling that this body is a temple. This body is the home of my divine essence. And by noticing that, by feeling that in my sensations, by transcending my body with the pleasure that I felt, uh, something opened inside. Like it was, it was a major shift. I call it a spiritual shift
Mm-hmm.
because I think when the shift happens at the core of who we are, it's not just my mind that was doing that. And from that moment on, I started finally looking at the core desires of my soul. What was it that I wanted to experience in my relationships with my family members, with my friends, and with my lovers? What was it that I wanted to experience in my professional life? What was the success that I wanted to have? What were my measures of success instead of the measures that are given by the world, right? And I started making changes that were anchored in this body wisdom, in this feeling of being really powerful and really creative and really, I want to say immense, like,
Mm.
you know, like when you feel you're just as big as the planet, as big as the ocean, right? And from there after, so many changes happened in my life, so many shifts. I stopped being a people's pleaser, and now, yes, I'm a very friendly, very good person to be with, as long as my boundaries are respected, as long as my needs are met, also as long there is equal exchange. I completely changed my professional life. I left the corporate world. I devote myself to helping other women reconnect with this body, with this pleasure, with these divine capacities, so that they too can feel it and transcend the boundaries, so that they can create the lives they want for themselves. Um, I then met the love of my life while I was going through all of this. We got married, I moved here to the US. So many changes that 5 years ago I would never dream of. And so many possibilities for myself to create. I think that's the main word when when I connect with my sensuality and the erotic nature of myself. It's the ability to create. We are divine human beings. We can create lives if we want to, right? What else can we create? Anything, if we can create life, right? So that's a
Yeah.
little bit of it.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. I love that, that's just like you said about that sense of being immense, like that sense of like when everything comes online and you connect into that pleasure and that sense of creativity, it's like, oh my God, everything is possible, pull away these limiting beliefs and the people pleasing and the
Mhm.
having crappy boundaries and stuff, because it's like the sense of self-worth and self-esteem goes through the roof when we really tap into honoring our bodies and our pleasure and everything else. And I love what you say there. I know in this series, what's come up a lot is the stuff that's in the way of that, which can often be, shame and guilt, and that lack of feeling worthy and deserving of pleasure. I see it a lot in my own clients, that they almost feel guilty for receiving pleasure or making pleasure a priority, or it's like something that should be done after all the other things have been done on the to-do list. Yeah, and I'd love to ask you, like, how, or can we learn that? How can we become more deserving? Because it sounds like that's been a big part of your reclamation of your power.
Yeah. Well, again, that's something that I didn't grow up with, right? And I think we need to acknowledge that historically, women have been kept away from their sense of deserving and worthiness. This is a construction, right? That I link this construction to the beginning of the patriarchy,
Mm-hmm.
and this the systemic actions that were and are still in place that will make sure that women are kept small, are kept in cages,
Mm-hmm.
and that we forget, because I think it's about forgetting. We all have this power already. We need to remember, perhaps we need to uncover, but it's all here for all of us. But what I think is that because there is such a big social historical conditioning, it is very hard for women to address this unless they are aware of it. So for me, and that comes a lot from my training in the ontology of language, for me, we must examine our beliefs. We must examine our these thoughts, these ideas that we assume to be true, we assume to be universal. I really believe that we must question and dare everything all the time. That doesn't mean we're going to change our minds all the time, but we allow ourselves to look deeper into these constructions that we have. So for women who think, and look, I work mostly with Brazilian women. If you think that Europeans and Americans are putting their pleasure as the least of their priorities, imagine Latina women who are dealing with such oppression, with ridiculous amount of violence, so it is tough. But once we start questioning this, once I ask to you, Mangala, why can you not feel pleasure? Why is it dirty? But don't tell me, oh, because people tell me. Why is it for you? What does it mean for you to associate pleasure with something disgusting, right? Or why can you why is it important for you to say yes to others all the time and fulfill their needs, and keep saying no to yourself all the time? Why do you do that? And with that exploration, and there is no right answer here, don't get me wrong, but these questions will open a field for us to explore. It will open a field for us to start understanding, why do I feel guilty when I touch my body? Why do I feel guilty when I say no to my family members and go to my bedroom to do my pleasure practices, So I think that first is about this, the mental deconstruction of these beliefs. But there is something else. That's not enough. And I think the something else involves the body. So, because when we talk about the expression of our erotic nature, we are talking about our bodies. The
Mm.
body needs to be integrated to all of this. So, I really like to invite people first to create safety for an exploration, right? Even these questions that I posed here may be triggering for some people,
Yeah.
depending on their backgrounds, depending on their life history. So if the questions may be triggering, imagine going to the body, imagine feeling the body. So I really believe that creating safety, safe enough, safety enough,
Hmm.
creating safety um, for curiosity to arise, creating safety for small explorations of going further, of doing something different, that also can start telling that it is okay, start telling internally to our bodies, to our minds, to even to our nervous system,
Yeah.
that it is okay to walk that path. It is okay to explore. Of course, respecting the boundaries and the limits of each one. But I do believe that once we are aware of the body and we allow ourselves to feel the bodies, to feel the language of our body, to feel our sensations, to feel what some people call the felt sense, we are starting to create a path to understand that this body is, again, immense in its ability to experience pleasure. And then once we start allowing ourselves to go there, I think the shift in our mind will occur, will happen.
Hmm.
I don't think the shift in these historically built oppressions and histories happen like that. I really don't believe in that. I think it's a construction and that we are responsible for part of this construction. But I also feel that the body can give some answers to us if all of it is done with safety, if all of this is done with love. That's why I say that I teach women to lovingly reconnect with their bodies, because I think the energy of love needs to be holding everything and, supporting all the way. Um, yes, I think that's what I have to share around it.
That's beautiful. And I love what you said about, like this, it's like this pulling apart of the conditioning, the systemic systems of oppression that depending on our, depending on our ethnicity and our upbringing, that we hold into different levels. But I feel like really now on the planet more than ever, we've got an opportunity to unpack this on deeper levels, like the late stage capitalism, patriarchy, and of course racism, which is like, right, it's so systemic, and
Yeah.
it that runs so deep because it's on such a cellular level,
Mhm.
and this is the potential for empowerment when you start to let go and unwind that stuff from your body and to tune in and say, well, what's my truth, is
Yeah.
wow. It's huge.
Mhm.
There's so much potential there. So I'd love to ask you a bit more about this. So what are the ways that through sexual empowerment we can support the liberation of the historically oppressed, and marginalized populations such as Black and Indigenous women of color?
Yeah. To me, that is what most discussions around liberation of marginalized populations is lacking,
Mm-hmm.
is to bring the body to the playground, let's call it that way, right? Because if we look at racism is otherizing of bodies,
Yeah.
right? Your
Yeah.
body is other than mine. It's not about mind. It's not about thoughts. It's not about ideas. It's about the body, right?
Mm.
And we tend to go to these places in which we want to deconstruct all of these oppressions that hit the body first in the mind space.
Yeah.
So it doesn't, right? It
Mm.
doesn't make much sense to me. So for me, what I how I see that the erotic energy can support the liberation of these populations is by reminding us that we can feel, reminding us of our humanity, because that's what racism does to these populations. It denies me, a Black person, humanity.
Mm.
It's as if I'm less human than a white person, right? And so when we reclaim that, when we say, no, wait a minute, you want to convince me that I'm less than, you want to convince me that I have no agency over my desires, no agency over my body. You want to convince me that you can do whatever you want to do with this body, be that brutal police violence, be sex violence, or the less clear violences, the microaggressions
Mm.
that happen all the time to bodies of color. So when I say, wait a minute, and I come to this body and I tune into the power of creation again, to the power of feeling, to the power of transcending this body, because and I can speak for the Black body as a Black woman, right? So my Black body has also carried so much trauma
Mhm.
around the messages that the world gives me every day. And it doesn't stop giving me the messages that my body is not beautiful enough, is not worthy enough, that I shouldn't make as much money as other bodies, things like that. So sometimes transcending this body through the embodiment of pleasure, through the feelings of immensity that the pleasure can bring us, can remind me that no, this is a lie,
Mhm.
this is bullshit. This body is as divine as a white body, as an indigenous body, as an Asian body. It's as I don't believe in one is better than the other. I think we're equally divine. And when I remember that and I nurture my nervous system with that remembrance in a cellular level, but also in a spiritual level, then the strength builds up from inside. And because I also believe that the liberation has to be internal first. It's
Mhm.
not going to come from others. Nobody will set me free, right?
Mhm.
Um, the same way that when slavery was over, we're still setting ourselves free of that, right?
Yeah.
So for me, it's like, so you feel this inside and you remember of this capacity, and you remember that you're a human being and a divine being. And from here, you nurture your nervous system in a way that it starts healing the wounds, because there's so much wounding here,
Yeah.
so much wounding that that sometimes it's hard to look at. So when we bring pleasure to help us to support this healing, also it becomes more manageable. So I think pleasure would also work as a medicine for bodies of color. And then from here, from this inner wisdom, from this inner empowerment, from this um, unquestionable knowing, then we can go outside and start setting the boundaries, start fighting the oppression, because we still need to fight. As a Black woman, I still need to fight to be seen as human. I still need to fight to be treated equally and with respect, with dignity and things like that.
Mm.
But if I'm nurturing myself internally, and if I'm in touch with that human nature, that divine nature, and I'm creating balance and harmony in my nervous system, the fight is fightable.
Mhm.
I can go there and do this. But if I'm depleted, if I'm disconnected, if I'm actually believing in these lies, then it's very hard to go out there and promote any sort of change.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Wow. Thank you so much for really, going there. And I really love what you say there, because it's like there's the two things, isn't it? There's internalizing and holding that. And then there's also the fact that activism is exhausting. Um,
Yeah.
and you can't do it from a depleted place long term if you want to keep showing up and modeling to your community and everyone around you how it is to be empowered and to stand in your truth. It takes a lot of energy, and you need to have your nervous system supporting you in that and have the resources to do it. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah, yeah,
And also, bodies of color are traumatized.
yeah.
So nurturing that nervous system and healing that nervous system is also healing that the wounds of so much trauma,
Yeah,
of generations of trauma, of a life history of trauma.
yeah.
So there's also that. Yeah.
Yeah, and as you say, it's not just individual, it's collective, it's ancestral. It
Yeah.
stuff runs really, really deep. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, wow. It's amazing. And just going a bit further in that, like, why do you feel it's important to, I mean, you've kind of touched on this already, but like to understand not just your own sexuality, but the, that of people who are different to ourselves, because
Mm.
this is one of the main missions of this series, is that I really want to have the conversations about decolonizing sexuality, really like unpacking that, because I think we've all got something to learn by doing the work together and amplifying voices of marginalized people and doing some of the heavy lifting. And I would love it if you could talk to the benefits of discovering more about other people's sexuality that's not the same as our own. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, for me, there are two pieces to this reflection. So first, Mangala, I think that it's important to state that sexuality, at least from where I see it, is the core of who we are.
Mhm.
It's our natural essence. So we're born with our sexuality and we die with our sexuality. We have it, we experience it all our lives, regardless if we have sex or not,
Mm.
regardless, if we touch ourselves or not. But because sexuality is such a core piece of who we are, it doesn't make any sense for me that we're going to live this life putting this perception and putting this part of our life, which is such core, to the side,
Mm.
you know, under the rug, like not looking at it, right?
Yeah.
And then I think this is a space for reclaiming our truth, the truth of who we are, the authentic truth, not the truth that is sold to us by media, marketing,
Mm.
culture, religion, or everything. That's one piece. But we need to remember that we're human beings, we live in relation to others, right? We're not in islands.
Mhm.
Even with COVID, we have Zoom, and we are
Yeah.
still in relation with others. And how important it is for us to acknowledge that we have the core of who we are, and we really allow ourselves to live in accordance to the truth of who we are. This is key to an authentic life, and also offering that same perspective to others who live differently from us. So here in the Bay Area, there are so many discussions around gender.
Mhm.
you know, beyond the ideas of masculine and feminine and non-conforming folks and transgender, non-binary, and understanding that so many people don't see themselves and don't recognize themselves as a woman or as a
Mm-hmm.
man, and understanding that there is a possibility there, there is another way of living.
Mm.
There is another way of being and expressing yourself that is beyond these binary ideas of masculine and feminine. When I understand that, I open my mind.
Mm.
I open myself to perceiving that the way that I see myself as a cisgendered woman is one possibility
Mm-hmm.
among so many, right? And when we create that level of awareness and we bring an understanding of diversity, I truly believe that we enrichen our lives and that we elevate our sense of humanity, because we see humanity in people that live completely different from me, in
Mm.
people that have fantasies, desires, and express their kinks like so many people do differently from me. And still, I look at them and I admire them
Mm.
and I see beauty and I grow because I learn from them that there are more possibilities. So for me, living in a very narrowed minded space of, oh, there's only this, you can only express your gender like this, you can only see beauty in a body that is this size, this shape, this
Mm.
color, this
Mm-hmm.
age, you know, I think that makes everything so poor, so little, so shallow.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, when we open ourselves to the experiences of others that are different from us, when we see those experiences as valid, as normal, as possible as our experiences, we're bringing more diversity. And I think that as human beings, we thrive in diversity.
Mm.
I don't think we thrive in black and white. I think we thrive in a rainbow, you know, of colors.
I
Yeah.
love that. Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah. And it's probably different in the Bay Area. But I know in a lot of the sexuality circles that I've been in over the years, like in all the hippie hotspots like Bali and Koh Phangan, and I lived a long time in Melbourne, and it's predominantly white and predominantly heterosexual, you know?
Yes.
And
White, thin,
yeah, yeah,
young,
yeah,
rich.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
There's, and
Yes.
and that creates a very yeah, it can exclude so many people from feeling like they're good enough, or that they're
Mhm.
beautiful enough, or that they're worthy, or, and then sexual healing then becomes something that's reserved for very privileged people, rather than
Yeah. Yeah.
something that we can all access and
Yeah.
awaken within. And
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, it's
But I also think, Mangala, that it also creates a box of
mhm,
what sexual healing looks like.
mhm,
It looks like flowy dresses, skinny,
yeah,
blonde bodies.
yeah,
So sexual healing then is not for me,
yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah,
So that's why I say that I
mhm,
truly believe we thrive in diversity,
mhm,
because yes, I can see beauty, I can see divinity in a white, blonde, skinny body, as well as I can see my body, as well I can see in an Asian body.
yeah,
So and when we open these doors in our eyes, in our hearts, in our bodies, then we open this for so much more possibilities in life in general. And we become more creative,
totally.
because that's the nature of creativity as well, diversity,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, yeah. And we see that in nature all around us, and this is like, sexual energy is its creativity, its life force, it's
Mm,
it's in every every cell of every living thing is connected to this energy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And have you had experiences, I'm sure you've experienced with clients as well, of like when they tap into this erotic energy that, as you say, it can become a spiritual awakening. It's like you tune into that true essence of divinity, and not the labels and how society says you should look or behave or anything else.
Yeah. Oh, I think to me, that's the biggest privilege and honor to do what I do
Mm,
with my life right now, professionally,
mm,
is to witness the blossoming of that in
mm,
others. Is to it's to really walk hand in hand for a while with my students, with my clients, and then watch them. It I don't have kids, but I imagine it's almost the same as when a parent is teaching their child, to ride a bike. And you're holding the bike with the child, and then the child is all of a sudden doing it alone and smiling and feeling the wind in the face, and falling and hurting their knees and bleeding, and all feeling all there is to feel,
Mhm,
right? All the spectrum. For me, it is similar to that. When I see that a woman remembered, because it's about remembering,
mm,
and created safety enough for her to experience a life of pleasure, a life of vitality, a life of joy, a life of inner freedom. Because freedom, and that's so much of what the tantric philosophy, the classical tantric
mm,
philosophy, teaches us about. Tantra as the path of
mhm,
liberation, right? How can we be truly free if we are still held in our capacities to feel?
mhm,
How can we be truly free if we're still practicing and reproducing oppressions against others who are diverse from us? How can we be truly free if we're still working, like, you giving our energy as fuel to this engine
mhm.
that keeps us enslaved in a
Yeah.
way, right? So as a path of liberation, noticing that any person, I work with people who identify as women, so that's why I'm talking about women here. Any person, any human being can experience that, and being able to witness that is amazing. It's like, so I cry often. I'm very emotional, so I often cry. I get really um, touched by what is possible once a woman remembers
Mm,
that power, that beauty, that capacity to be whoever she wants to be.
mm,
And the next step, when she creates things in her life that show that.
mm,
So when she blossoms within, and then all around her, you know, she starts giving life to the things that she wants to bring in life, to the work that she does, whatever work it is that this person does, to the way that she relates to other people, to the way she's raising kids, you know.
yeah.
It's I think it's truly revolutionary. This conversation that we're having here, I think this is truly revolutionary, especially because historically we were denied spaces, we were denied the power to hold these conversations and to walk this path of liberation through pleasure. So I think we're doing um, a very beautiful revolution here. Yeah,
I like to say it's like we're changing the world one orgasm at a time.
yeah,
And it's I resonate with everything you say there, Marina. I'm just like, like I have the same thing with my clients. It's like I I become like a proud mama bear when I see them just going out and doing stuff in the world and changing their lives and, up leveling their relationships and changing careers and just it's like that capacity to receive more and to know your worth and not accept any less is just it's so beautiful to witness. Yeah,
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 yeah.
uh,
And that capacity, from where I see it, that capacity must be embodied.
yeah,
That
yeah,
capacity must be felt in the cells of our bodies.
yeah,
You know, it's not just that we think of, because when we talk about women's empowerment, there's so much around out there about women's empowerment that is so focused on mindset,
hmm
mindset. There's nothing wrong with that, but we're not just mind.
mm,
We're not just the thoughts, we're not just the ideas. Actually, the mind, the thoughts, the idea are a small part of who we are.
mm, yeah,
And bringing on board the body, the spirit, you know, this that is even unknown and more subtle to
mm,
understand, that for me is true empowerment for
mm,
any person.
mm.
Yeah.
Amazing. There's just one
Mhm.
last question I'd love to ask you because it's part of this whole conversation that's kind of unfolding in this series. What's the word that you use for your lady parts? What resonates with you? Or what do
Oh,
you
this is
encourage your
so
clients?
hard for me.
Yeah.
I
With-
love the word pussy.
yeah.
I just love the word pussy. I think it's brilliant. But we don't have, we actually have equivalent in Portuguese, but that I don't really resonate
Mm,
with. So if you're asking me in English, I will say pussy.
mm,
But in Portuguese, I will probably say vagina, you
mm,
know.
mm,
And even though I think vagina doesn't really grasp all of
yeah.
it. I really like the Sanskrit word yoni
Mm,
as the portal of life. I love that, but I still have a problem using it all
yeah.
the time. I think there's some cultural appropriation there
Hmm.
that I don't feel so comfortable with unless I'm in a ritual
Yeah.
doing something, you know. But in English, it's pussy for sure. So
Mm,
much pussy power. So much
mm.
pussy juiciness, and being able to talk to my pussy
Yeah.
and to hear what she has to share, all the wisdom, all the power, all the support that she
Mhm.
has been giving me
Yeah.
since I
Mm,
started this path. Oof,
mm. Yeah.
she's
Yeah.
she is the path of liberation
Yeah.
herself.
Yeah. That's it. And it's like when we ask ourselves these questions, even just the question of what do you call yours, there's a
Mm,
whole her story behind that and all the layers of conditioning and everything else. And I know for myself, that's what sparked the inspiration for this series is for the last 10 years, I've been in neo-tantric circles and classical tantra circles,
mm.
and I used the word yoni for 10 years and taught yoni
Yeah,
massage. I've trained
yeah,
many practitioners, and then as I went deeper on my anti-racism work and I started pulling apart this cultural appropriation, it's like even though I'm initiated in classical tantra where it is
yeah,
totally appropriate to use yoni in specific contexts, how do I feel
mhm,
about that as a white Western woman? And
yeah,
it's just like, yeah, and that's what ended up
yeah,
becoming the series, is because it's like there's work to do here. um
yeah,
my own work as well as everybody doing their own work, so it's a never ending journey of
yes,
discovery. Mm,
it is. I think it is. One thing that I try to be very aware of is not to beat myself too hard
Mm.
with the mistakes from the past
Yeah.
when I didn't know better, right?
Mhm.
Like Maya Angelou, amazing Maya Angelou, she has a classic sentence about that that goes something like that. I don't know exactly, but it's like um, it's okay that to make mistakes.
Mhm.
Once you know better, then do better.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, instead of like beating ourselves up with
Mm.
that.
Mm.
And I think that Ioni is still a big place of disconstruction and
Mm.
discussion for everybody in this sacred sexuality
Mm.
field. Because yes, if you're in a ritual, I think it's perfectly
Mhm.
appropriated to use
Mm.
it. And I also acknowledge that some people might not agree with me
Mhm.
in that.
Mm.
You know, as Westerners, we should never use it,
Mm.
right? But I think that if it's a ritual that is connected to that tradition, why
Mm.
not, right?
Mm.
So I don't know.
Mm.
It's a big topic.
It
It's you're
is.
doing a very good service to to all this community for us to be thinking about this and reflecting, but reflecting
Yeah.
holding the complexity of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's no right or wrong here.
No.
There's no, it's
Yeah.
complex,
And I
right?
think the reason so many of us have appropriated that word is because our own, we've lost our own traditions around and with empowering words, and because so many words for female genitalia are used as derogatory, it's left us
Yeah,
feeling like we want something more beautiful and we want something more
yeah,
empowering, and so we've
yeah.
looked for something from another culture to do that. So
Yeah.
there's, I mean, wow. Yeah, could talk about this for hours.
We can, yes.
Oh,
Mm,
oh, wow. Well, thank you, Marina. It's just been an absolute
mm,
joy to hear your wisdom and for you to, share this deep wisdom with us all. I just love how embodied you are. I can really feel
mm,
the sensuality and the work you're in. It just kind of oozes from you. It's delightful.
mm.
So yeah, so for anybody who wants to, I would highly recommend that you follow Marina. You'll see it's got her website and social media details, so you can follow her, and your website's in Portuguese, but it's also translated into English because I found loads of great stuff on there, so go check her out. She's awesome. Yeah, thank you so much for being part of this beautiful conversation.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's such a big pleasure. I wish that all the people who are watching this benefit so much from these conversations and find some healing from
Mm,
all of these conversations. And I really wish that these benefits also spread to the people who don't have the ability to be in touch with these conversations yet because of
mm,
oppression, because of where they are, because of the way our world is structured. So may all beings be happy and free, and may
mm,
we help beings in their path of liberation.
mm.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you for
you.
having me.
We've got work to
Mm.
do.
Yes, it's a lot.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.